Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made in this week. Now, as usual, I'll give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made in first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made in, or maybe even some music. So let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 1. 3 local dancers headed to Scotland. JT Whitehouse has a piece published April 8th explaining how 3 local dancers will be headed to Scotland for the World Competition in Irish Dancing. Cameron Sweeney, Jocelyn Mealy, and B.B. Duffus. They're all students at the Burke School of Irish Dance in Youngstown. They will be representing the Valley and Ohio on the world stage. Now, the article is filled with inspiring information about local Irish dance stories. If you want to check it out, the consistent and needed attention on the local performing arts is what got the story, and that's why story number 1 made it this week. Story number 2. Zoning in Boardman on the radar. Boardman trustees made headlines after several community members took opposition to a request by Boardman Southwoods Surgical Hospital to rezone lots owned by the hospital from office to general business. That's what they want to turn them into. Now, the goal, according to a Mediator article published April 9th by Russell Brickey, is to expand the current hospital by adding a wing rather than a freestanding building, as stated in the report. Now, the piece goes on to talk about zoning concerns about rental properties with the intent to make sure that local regulations do not conflict with state regulations. Now, the report concludes with other zoning business being discussed by Boardman Zoning. That's why story number 2 made him this week. Story number 3. Fire officials in Liberty in the headlines. The plan, according to an article published by the Mediator April 9th by Daniel Newman, is to have a labor management meeting due to questions and concerns about staffing at the Liberty Fire Department. Now, the article goes on to explain how Station 34 has been closed due to staffing concerns. Now, the main talking point in this report is that Liberty is looking to increase staffing at Station 34, according to the report, due to concerns and the safety. They're concerned about the safety of the local community, and they want to stay within budget while also meeting the safety concerns. Now, the article concludes talking about pay. The story is still developing. That's why story number 3 made it this week. Story number 4. The local drug war has taken more than 4 decades to conclude. To make progress, Ed Runyon has a piece with a headline titled Law Enforcement Task Force Battles Valley Drug Crimes. Now, the article speaks on the internal battle taking place to combat the local drug problems. Now, the article starts out by explaining how few people know about the Mahoning Valley Law Enforcement Task Force, which arrests and convicts mid to upper level drug dealers. Now, according to the article, the force has been very active. The task force has been very active in initiating investigations that involved 196 individuals and 36 people who were all sentenced to 63 total years and 45 years of probation, according to the report. Now, in 2024, if you did not know, the task force seized 34 pounds of methamphetamine. Now, the article is long and is definitely worth a read for those wanting to know more about the local drug wars. That's why story number 4 made it this week. Story number 5, focusing on economics in Youngstown. It looks like the city will be moving forward with 2 economic development initiatives. Now, according to a piece by David Skolnick published April 6th, a $200,000 fund to help small businesses is in the works to assist Youngstown Youngstown's economic challenges. Now, the article also mentions $50,000 to create a strategic plan. Now, Youngstown's consistent economic challenges is what got this story in. That's why story number 5 made it in this week. Story number 6. What will the education data say at the end of the school year? Consistent reports about students fighting, and unruly behavior has kept this story in the news. The parent, teacher, and student behavior challenges have also been trending. Challenges ahead, challenges now. Now, the pressure is still on for public and private schools to meet the grades, even in the midst of teacher fatigue and so many academic failures. Now, as the school year draws to an end, local analysts will be eyeing graduation data, test scores, and all of the above. Now, education stories have stayed consistent in local and international headlines, thus making this a top story, folks. This story is still developing. That's why story number 6 also made it to the top 2 this week. Story number 7 and the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it in this week. Extra, read all about it. Why is everybody complaining about Youngstown? Why is everybody and some people like Tito Brown? Who is going to be in the next election? Who's going to win? Who knows? That's what you got to learn. Stand informed. Got to stay informed. Story number 7. Analyzing how Youngstown is being managed so far. The local community, folks, has sports, arts, restaurants, a park, and plenty of fun activities to get into, but some local residents are concerned about how these entities are being managed because a lot of people don't know about what the local community has to offer. Some of them don't even want to know. The consistent negative press about the local community is what has this story trending, and like a wise friend once told me, you don't want to upset too many people in a small community because word could spread pretty fast. So story number 7 also made it to the top this week. Big. Story number 8 in the top local headline and developing news stories that made it this week, folks. I am rolling the dice that you will stay informed, that you're listening, staying in tune to what's going on around you. A lot of news stories been coming in, people coming in, telling me things, informing me about some things. I got an interview on the website now with Fred D'Amico. He came into the studio and was telling about the past visions about he has had as for his Youngstown Film Commission, and I took a draw. I said I come across a lot of people who have a lot of stories in the city, so it amazes me about how some of these demands and some of these things have not been met, and some of them blame it on officials. I have never really met that many Youngstown officials, so who knows? That's why I'm in here trying to keep people informed, because maybe they will someday come and try to maybe resolve some of these issues that come on into the Mediator office, even when it comes to prison stories. Story number 8, how the ARP and other aid money has been spent so far locally. Speaking of money, now it appears that the city has held meetings after meeting to determine the correct way to spend American Rescue Plan funds and COVID money at that. Now, City Finance Director Kel Miasak has been quoted several times in local stories explaining how he feels that the city is headed in the right direction financially. Now, there have also been several articles about how council ward members have voiced their concerns about money being rationed out to help their wards and improve their wards. So they're saying some of this in the past have said this money has been delayed and all types of other stuff. Now, local nonprofits and community activists have also been in headlines, if you remember, and many have been filled with rage after being denied help. Some people tutoring programs, etc. Now, some local officials like Justin Jennings, who had to step down, that story has stayed in the headlines after FBI probes have been layering about misspent money, COVID money. So in all, it depends on who you ask when gearing questions about the American Rescue Plan funds and COVID money and all the other stuff. And other spending aids when you talk about. So depending on who you ask, you may get a different outlook on how effective the money has been. Some people probably looked at it as a curse. They probably would still have a job if they wouldn't have had this problem. Now, this story is still developing. That's why story number 8 made it this week. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories. So don't you go anywhere. You're on the Mediator. Me, Brian West. I'll be right back.
Tune in and don't forget to subscribe to Method 8 Inc. YouTube channel. You can also watch free public entertainment. And don't forget to show some support by visiting www.method8inc.com by buying something, clicking something, watching something, or just reading something. You can also sponsor a program as well. That's www.method8inc.com. Buy stuff, watch stuff, or read stuff.
What does Method8Inc.com Media Center have that I need?
Small prints, event consulting, photography, business consulting, technical consulting, entertainment consulting, fundraising advice, event videography, movies, news, publishing, media, books, entertainment, acting, broadcasting, public relations, access to the visual and performing arts, ink and black ink refills, audio recording, graphic design, theater, minor computer and cell phone repair, and they're located at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. every Monday through Friday. The list goes on and on.
Method8Inc.com. Buy stuff, watch stuff, or read stuff.
Oh yeah! And yes, we are chipmunks.
Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Folks, I have come across a lot of stories, and I've come to find out that a lot of Americans are battling with depression. You know, we've discovered so much. We've had so many inventions. Some people are just maxed out, and a lot of people do not want to even read the news. They don't want to know about anything depressing because they're depressed. They're defeated inside, busted up. I mean, you got the war in Israel with Palestine and the Gaza Strip, and I mean, you look at the photos and you see children. It is depressing. I mean, it just sucks the life out of you, and you want to do something. Oh my God. This is frightening. And it's so frightening that I have some Palestinian friends, and I call them, well, one of them contacts me every once in a blue moon. And I never knew that Michael Jackson, big things. So every time I reach out to him, I start singing, I want to make a change. For once in my life, it's gonna feel real good. I'm gonna make a difference. I'm gonna make it right. Gotta hold up the corner store. Have you ever seen a Palestinian sing Michael Jackson? It's unbelievable. Because it's depressing right now. You got to find something to uplift you. And, they got Ramadan going on, and some of them Christians. So I just get a few of them together, and we just get up there and sing karaoke. And I get up there and sing Michael Jackson. If you ever seen a Palestinian do the moonwalk, it will uplift people. And I hope that joke spreads and resonates throughout all of Israel and Palestine, because somebody's got to bring peace and love back to this planet. And if Mike can't do it, then somebody's got to do it. So if we got to get some Palestinian folks on stage doing the moonwalk just to bring some uplifting out of this depression, then let's do it. Who am I to be blind to defending that you're not alone? Those are the words. Let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 1. what the EPA is doing to handle pollution. The EPA plans to crack down on toxic emissions from more than 200 chemical plants, according to a headline in The Hill. Now, this is all in an ongoing effort to reduce the number of people facing elevated cancer risk due to their exposure to air pollution. There is good data in this report stating that some cancer data has gone down, as in gone down, showing improvements in regard to the pollution problems. Now, the new regulations would reduce toxic pollution by more than 6,200 tons per year. This story is still trending. And yes, folks, I do sympathize with what has been going on over in the Middle East. It is very sad. So I just hope that I can bring a smile to some people's face, because the people are depressed, tired, and weary of terrible news. Big headline. Story number 2. How abortion got out of hand and became a top story. Fox has a piece on how the Supreme Court will decide if states can ban life-saving abortions. Now, this story has been gaining a lot of steam after the overturning of Roe versus Wade shot abortion news into top stories some time back, if you remember, especially with I think Trump even made some headlines. Now, in the process, hospitals and pharmacy chains and stores have been scrambling to aid women looking for preventative care when it comes to their personal needs, which is kind of odd, but the story is still developing. That's why story number 2 made it this week. Big headline. Story number 3. America's role in global conflicts right now is very complicated. There are complications in all these stories. Now, as many wars continue to break out in places like Israel and Palestine, Russia and Ukraine, and now Haiti is even in the mix after the country fell into anarchy some weeks ago. Now, in all, America seems to be on the sidelines providing weapons and aid. Now, in these ongoing conflicts, the taxpayer has been more concerned about spending more of the money, more. They've been worried about spending more than anything, and if America can keep footing the tab for the world's conflicts. So that means the taxpayers have been spending all this money on the world. Now, this story has stayed in the headlines because Zelensky of Ukraine in a CNN report said that Ukraine could lose the war against Russia if the U.S. aid is not approved. Now, with many American allies facing pressure, this story will remain in top headlines. That's why story number 3 made it this week. Story number 4. Finding a way to make education affordable is complicated. Now, the only way to solve the education affordability problem seems to be that America has to find a way to make American colleges cheaper. And now it is now clear that America's student loan system may work for some, but not for all. Now, this is as Joe Biden rolls out his student loan forgiveness plan, which has faced mixed opposition. NACAC CEO Angel Perez told CNBC that America is overly reliant on student loans to fund higher education, thus creating an education mess. Now, Vox has an article written by Miles Bryan on April 9th on how Minnesota has a plan to fix the high cost of college. This story is still developing. That's why story number 4 made it this week. Well, folks, those are our top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. I'll be right back with the top 4, so don't you go anywhere. You're the Mediator, me, Brian West. I'll be right back. Tune in to Method A's YouTube channel to check out the top interviews that made it throughout the years and months. You can check out people telling us stories about philanthropy, prison, and even things that are going on in the community. Visit method8inc.com. Check out all the community interviews if you want to check it out. Method8inc.com. Buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Oh, yeah. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week, folks. Listen to a lot of the new presidential, talk, and you listen to conservative radio, you listen to liberal media, you listen to so many outlets, and being in the middle is kind of tough because you try to listen, but it's tax season, and you wonder who's going to say what next. Accountants call it, Brian, don't give them any more bright ideas. Please, don't give them no more bright ideas. We don't need nothing else to change. It's already as messed up as it is. So, can you imagine if Joe got on TV, in order to clear up the border, we are going to allow Americans to take in migrants and get a tax break. Ooh-wee, that would cause so many problems. Could you imagine that, folks? Everybody in America getting money from the government to take in migrants. Americans will do anything for some money. I think that there will probably be no more people left at the American border because Americans would be getting paid to take care of them. Like the accountants would tell me, Brian, please don't give them any more bright ideas because the paperwork is extensive. Could you imagine the write-offs? If people just started taking in, sponsoring, and housing, getting tax credits for migrants, would that solve the border problems? Would this tax season be so strenuous? And who else but the taxpayer would benefit from getting a tax break on taking in migrants? Whew. Even the thought, and at the end of the day, getting the phone call. Oh, Brian, please don't give anybody any more bright ideas because the paperwork is extensive and the process takes a long, long time, and the money just cannot keep getting printed out, and the people will keep on coming even more, even if you did give everybody a tax break for taking in migrants. So don't you see, the problem keeps going on and on, keep getting brushed under the rug over and over again with literally no solution. But the problem is what got this story in, folks. There are problems to be solved, so get up and find a solution. Let's waste no time, folks. Moving right along this week. Let's get to it. Story number 5. Speaking of the problem, the migration problem, folks, is serious. The UN reports that 38 people are dead, including children, after a migrant boat sunk off of the coast of Djibouti. And this is with more people dying in the Gulf of Aden, trying to reach Saudi Arabia through Yemen. Now, this is according to Al Jazeera. Now, this is all at a time when humanitarian aid work has faced harsh conditions and border policies have stayed in top headlines globally, not just in America. Now, this all includes starvation, health concerns, and even human trafficking. Now, although migration and refugee stories are nothing new, these stories point out a side of life that a lot of people would prefer to push under the rug, as stated in the little monologue before this story. Now, this is after Texas Governor Greg Abbott, if you remember, busted migrants to sanctuary states, getting them out of his state, causing the immigration issue to stay in the top headlines. Now, at the moment, even asylum laws are being tested. The upcoming presidential election is what got this story in, because immigration will be a sticky point on voters' minds. Folks, this is all after a Fox News headline that Joe Biden's secret flights of 33,000 migrants to New York passes buck to city taxpayers gained the attention of New Yorkers. Folks, this story is still developing. That's why story number 5 made in this week. Story number 6, the strength of the dollar is in the news. Reuters has an entire article focusing on the strength of the U.S. dollar. The piece is filled with data on how there has been little change, especially when referring to inflation data compared to the yen. Now, this article has investors' attention, thus getting it into the top 8 because everyone is talking money these days, and a strong dollar has a lot to do with how people buy, trade, and sell. That's why story number 6 always made to the top 2 this week because we're talking money, and the dollar's strength is important right now. Big headline. Story number 7 and the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week for you. For one thing, to keep you informed, I do all the work for you navigating the news. All you have to do is tune in, be entertained, and be informed. Story number 7, how are small businesses doing? Reuters says that U.S. small business sentiment has slid to its lowest level in more than 11 years. Now, what got this story in is the fact that this is the 27th straight month that the index has slid below the 50-year average of 98, according to the report. Now, 25% inflation is the main concern in this story, thus making this a top story. The folks, this story is still developing. So story number 7 also made to the top this week. How are small businesses doing? This is the lifeline of every community in America. Bloodline. Big headline. Story number 8 in the top international headline and developing news story that made it this week. You know what small businesses need? Money, loans, and money, and customers. That's what they need. So if you're sitting down, you have nothing to do, and you got a little bit of money, spend it at a small business. Story number 8. Let's take a look at the job data. The economy added 303,000 jobs in March, according to Reuters. Now, if you did not know, the unemployment rate fell to 3.8% from 3.95% in February. Now, depending on where you are and who you talk to, there may be mixed opinions when it comes to the job market because there is still a lot going on in the jobs reports. And that's why everybody has their eyes on the markets and the money. This is not a time to be slacking off. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local and international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out of doing the research. As usual, I'd like to thank all the news outlets, the journalists, the people on the front lines. You deserve all the credit. I'm just a mediator, the man navigating your story just to keep people informed. If you want to show some support here at Method 8, it does not take much. All you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Or you can stop at the store at 5648 Market Street in Youngstown or Boardman, Ohio. See my smiling face and buy something. Well, folks, I am out here. I'll be back next week looking through over 200 or more stories just to keep you informed. Thank you for tuning to the Mediator this week with me, Brian West. Peace.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.